Being lost in the physical focus, again, which is different than to see that the physical focus is simply a reflection, the end-tail expression of who you are non-physically. If you can see the physical focus in that light, you are anchored in your non-physical focus. Does that make sense? If you can see, it's all how you see things. It's all from where you view things. It's not what you see. What you see doesn't really matter. It's where you view things from. What vibrational realm do you see things from? If you look at the physical circumstances and you see it from the light of understanding, vibrationally knowing and seeing and recognizing that it's only the end-tail reflection of what you previously did to yourself vibrationally, you are in alignment with the non-physical focus. That's why I say you don't have to dismiss the physical focus, you just need to see it from the light of the non-physical self and know that that's what you're looking from. If that's what you do, you can look and stare into the physical focus, become a biologist by all means. Do whatever you want to do. Explore the physical laws that are only ever conditional upon the reality that they apply to. But still, if you're so fascinated with physicality, you can absolutely do that. Just as long as it gives you joy, obviously, as long as it connects you to more of who you are and expresses more of who you are. But as long as you see it from the light of the non-physical, then you are anchored non-physically and you're not lost in the physical focus. So it's not about seeing physicality or recognizing physicality or even responding to physicality, as long as you vibrationally know that you are coming from a non-physical being and that you're looking at the very last segment of your creation. So, to not get lost, what does it feel like to be lost in the physical? Who knows? Lost, with the emphasis on lost. Again, it's not about the physical focus, it's about being lost in the physical focus. Forgetting that you are a vibrational creature, that you are a consciousness that's having a frequency experience of itself, that's reflecting upon itself, utilizing the mirror that we call physical reality or circumstances. It feels like shit. It feels like you're stuck. It feels like you lack movement, like you lack abundance, like you lack the means to do what you desire to do, what wants to come through you. You feel isolated, you feel separate from what you see. Whenever you look at the physical focus from the assumed physical focus point of view, you feel like you are physicality. You feel like you are physical, like you feel like you are the body in a separate world. You feel like you are isolated from other people. You feel like you are at harm based on other people,
Not good enough.
Not good enough, definitely. When you're looking at the physical focus, you can only ever look at the physical focus from the non-physical focus, but you can believe that you're looking at the physical focus from the physical focus. When you do that, you're out of alignment, you're out of vibrational alignment with where you position yourself, who you know yourself to be, and you will feel lacking, limited, etc. We all know that state, right? So just recognize it. Are you feeling slightly limited? Are you feeling slightly contracted? Are you feeling slightly lacking? Are you feeling slightly stuck in your reality? If so, you're looking at your physical focus from an assumed physical point of view being, when in reality you are consciousness, hearing my voice right now. Can you find physicality to the consciousness that hears my voice right now? No. Can you put it on this table? No. Can I eat it? Can I take a bite of it and give the rest to you? Can't do that. It's the spacious container of all the contents of life. That's what you are. You are the spacious free agent that contains all of creation. You give life in that sense to all that appears inside of you. This is your canvas. This is your illusion. This is your dream. So always remember that you are non-physical consciousness. And it's very obvious to see because you can't find consciousness, and yet all that you know is that you are conscious. So it's very deducible that you are non-physical. No? You see the physical, but how do you do that? From where do you see the physical? From a space of consciousness, from a space of awareness. Can you find awareness? Well, you can find it as an experience of itself, but you can't find it as a thing in the physicality. So it must mean that you are the spacious container which includes and encompasses all the physical projections of creation that seem physical, which really even physicality is not physical. But just to make that distinction, let's call it physical. Again, this is empty. It's nothing but consciousness's quote-unquote energy, and even to call it energy would be false, because it's not even that. It's really nothing. But it's quite miraculous. It's consciousness itself. This is consciousness. It's one of the hardest things to grasp, but this is consciousness. It's not physicality, it's not molecules, it's not atoms, it's not energy, it's consciousness. There is no second thing. in creation. But we make that distinction. We say there's consciousness, and then there's its energy, its presence energy. I make that distinction because it's super relevant, it's super enjoyable, and it allows you to learn more efficiently in some ways. But ultimately, when we talk about creation, all there is consciousness. This is consciousness. There is no energy. In a sense there is, but that is consciousness. So, you are non-physical by nature. When you feel even slightly bad, you're in a sense positioning yourself on a level of consciousness where you don't belong, where your true identity is not supposed to be associated with. Not supposed is a strong word, because you're supposed to learn, you're supposed to bump into conflict, you're supposed to have challenges, you're supposed to feel limited so that you can have this journey. So it is of service to the overall consciousness, learning more about its expression of infinity, etc. It all gets very complicated, but it's very simple at the same time. So you simply want to use your navigational tool, which is how you feel, as to how well you place your assumed identity. If you place your assumed identity in a really real state of being, one that comes very close to the actual truth of your nature, you will feel good, you will feel expanded, you will feel inseparable, you will feel free, you'll feel peaceful, you'll feel all capable. If you move further and further down into the physical illusion of consciousness and position your assumed identity right there in the midst of the tail end expression of who you actually are, then things start to feel contracted. Then things start to feel really bad. I'm not saying that's a bad thing per se or a bad sign. Again, it's a good sign because it means the system is working. You're being guided back into more and more non-physicality so that you can review and recreate the physical focus from a non-physical understanding of who you are.
In fact, I don't perceive now like life as in creating the time. I kind of have the sense of a platform. Okay. My circumstances give me an indication more or less what platform I'm on. Nice. And what platform I'd like to be. Yes. So I kind of have this vision that I'm kind of like hopping. Like I love the analogy of the parallel universes. I really resonate with that. So basically, not taking life as I was taught it to be too seriously. I started to make fun of myself. I'm talking of the idea of who I used to be more than 3 years ago. Since I've discovered your teachings, you reminded me I don't need to define things that I can define it in another way. What if I define it another way? What would it look like? So that's what I started doing, and that's why I've literally put all my eggs in the basket and said, what if Bentinho is right? And see what happens. In fact, my whole life has completely changed. It's completely... Oh my God. Okay, so he's right.
Finally, someone gets it.
So yes, Marie and I have basically put all our eggs in, and it works perfectly. Is by define the circumstance, define what you want the way you like it. That gives you like little giggles and makes you, you know, that let's define the things that we want in a way that, you know, excites us. What do we really prefer? Why I want you to speak about that is because not too long ago, I felt in South Africa, I felt a circumstance made me feel ridicule. And at the moment it hurt because I was believing something that's not true. Okay, and then I suffered for a few hours. I suffered for a few hours, and then I remembered you. You know, I often do what would Bentinho be thinking in this moment. And I said, well, what would I prefer to feel in that moment? And all of a sudden, it's like I prefer to feel brilliant.
Great.
And then proceeded for the next hour and a half of feeling that. Oh, wow. So I'm wondering, is that the process of what you... I kind of want to get inside of you to see how you feel, because this is where I am right now. It's not that I'm getting bored, it's that's why we came to Colorado. I'd like to excite myself to a point that where can my mind go? What platform can I get on that would really make this really fun? To the extent, it's not that I have a boring life, I have a wonderful life, and but I'd like to go beyond that comfortness that I know that is possible. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. More acceleration begets more acceleration.
So that's why when you said, how do you keep that level of vibration higher? I'm imagining that the more airtime we give to the higher, it's going to be a fun ride, you know.
Yes,
now that's what I
yes.
want you to talk about.
So here's the only disclaimer to that, and take this in whatever way you want, which is that the nature of our choice to be semi-physically focused as a theme that is relevant for us has the downside, which is really the upside, because true acceleration is not even so much how it looks like you're accelerating, but more what you take away from your experience while you're here. That is true acceleration. From a soul level, from a personal level, it might look from, okay, I went from this shitty cottage to this $1 million mansion, and I went from working a 9-to-5 job to doing absolutely what I love and helping set people free, etc., right? That could be within the storyline of this life. That can be your measurement for acceleration. That could be one measurement for acceleration, for having made changes, for having understood yourself, the principles of the universe, starting to master your frequency regardless of circumstances, therefore attracting quote-unquote better circumstances, or which simply means circumstances more reflective of your true desires. That's one measurement of acceleration. Now, and it's great, it's amazing, and this is what continuously builds throughout our life. However, from a more expanded soul point of view, true expansion means what you take away from this life. Because when you die, you leave your house behind. You know, all that stuff no longer, it's not that it doesn't matter, because it was a permission slip for your true expansion. So it's simply a way to communicate to your circumstances, which is more of yourself, a reflection of yourself, what is happening with you, so that you can learn from it and take away from it. So true expansion on a soul level, if you die, when you'll be truly happy, is if you've used this life to the best of your ability, as consciously as you can, and tried this process out. Also accepting the times where within this human time frame of measurement of acceleration, you have embraced the concept of the peaks and the valleys. Because if you drive yourself too crazy with just this barometer of acceleration being how you manifest your reality, or how you feel all the time, and that if you feel bad for like longer than a day, that means you've digressed completely. If you start being too attached to how things appear within this one life, and then base your sense of acceleration off of that, then you're doing the same thing you were previously doing off of your circumstances. Because your physical life here is still a circumstance. So even how you manifest your reality and how you feel is ultimately a circumstance to your soul. Does that make sense? So how you utilize that and what you take away from it is what you actually take with you into the expansion of your soul consciousness, which is why you're here to begin with. So don't get too hung up on what works and what does not work, or if it doesn't work all the time. I don't mean the first thing. Like, definitely focus on what works and let go of what does not work. Absolutely, absolutely. But don't oversaturate yourself with focusing on looking at whether or not things are actually working out. Because if you do that, you're again stuck too much in the physical identification of yourself as a separate individual. Does that make sense?
No, definitely. From the perspective now that I hold, is like it's always working out.
Yes.
If it's just like, am I seeing it or not? I mean, it's the first time that I can honestly say, through the lifetime that I've lived now at 42, I mean, actually hearing my own thoughts and then laughing at them or not, you know, or deciding what to think. It's just an amazing experience. So but I heard what you just said. And I liked it. I'm just going to let it settle there a second. Is there one thing I just want to put to bed? I'm following your academy. It's brilliant, by the way. You have this beautiful analogy about the main pole, a secondary pole, and an elastic. And the further us being here in this physicality, three-dimensional physicality, as we move away, we feel the emotion get worse or...
Yes.
Okay, so the closer I get to the main pole, the better I feel.
Yes,
the
less
further
tension,
I
the
go,
less resistance.
Exactly. Yes. Now, just to put this to bed, if I don't pick up how bad I'm feeling in the moment, I get lost in this reality.
Sure.
it gets worse, I've noticed. The feeling gets a
Yes.
lot worse. If I continue...
Until you notice it.
If I continue to ignore it or get lost more into
Yes.
this physicality, I start to feel some physical discomfort.
Yes, 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 yes.
Does it have anything to do with the emotion, or is my
Oh,
physical
yes.
discomfort okay?
Yes.
So I got very good at just feeling the negative emotion, but I do remember at times I used to get so far away of getting such migraines at some time. I just needed to put myself to bed.
Sure.
Of self-condemnation. Damn it, I've done something wrong again. So basically, the moment I let go of that definition, the headache would go.
Yes.
Okay. So discomfort in the physical is an indication I've been ignoring an emotion.
Yes, I would say 90% of the time it is.
90%. So it's not only that.
No, in a sense, yes. In a sense, no. So, yes, it's always that because it's always a reflection of what's going on vibrationally. But it's not always the case in the same context where it's like, oh, I've had too many negative thoughts, therefore this particular pain is occurring.
Okay.
Sometimes the particular pain is occurring because it's relevant for you to learn from that particular experience in a certain way that may not be directly related to the negative thoughts that you've had, although from another point of view you could say that you would not have to learn that lesson at all if you did not have had those negative lessons or those negative ideas before. But it's too much of a generalization to say that, because in the applicable relevant situation, sometimes you're feeling an experience of physical pain because it's showing you a certain direction. It does not have to be directly tied to a previous limited state of being. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, because I heard Eckhart Tolle say he suffers from constant ringing in the ear. I was thinking the guy is definitely hooked up. You know what I mean? So how come he's having this constant... And then I actually heard Byron Katie saying she's going blind. So I'm wondering what the body, you know what I mean? It's
Well,
just
we never stop learning. We never stop expanding. And so we need permission slips for that.
Okay.
The ringing of the ears can have many causes. It doesn't have to be suffering, but if he defines it as suffering, then he does have something to learn from that. Therefore, that's why it's there, etc. We all have something to learn. Doesn't matter how enlightened we are. If we're here, we can expand even more. And consciousness does not waste time. If we don't have anything that we can extract from this experience anymore, we'll simply disappear. So even if the learning is almost completely based on being of service, and that you extract your learning from that, that still is catalyst. That still is conflict in a sense. That still is contrast. Similar to having a physical pain offers contrast in experience, being of service, even if it's from a very pure state of not really needing anything much more psychologically for yourself, that is contrast too. And from a more impartial point of view, the contrast that you gain through being of service to other beings is the same catalytic mechanism for learning and experiencing as a physical pain. Does that make sense? So as long as we're here in whatever way that manifests, we have something to extract, because as soon as you're done with one lesson, consciousness goes, oh, well, you're still alive, this body still agrees with the rules of the society, there's still something to squeeze out of this life, so let me insert another challenge. Let me insert another challenge. Let me insert another challenge. This can look like a physical sensation, this can look like a migraine, this can look like being of service, or anything else.
And I get to choose how to define it.
Yes, yes.
All the time.
All the time.
Well, yeah.
Even if you're Eckhart.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's my perspective anyway.